Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:07 on this Monday morning. It's second day of June, already into June here as the year just flies by. Thank God we're covering every moment of it for you here on this 4-hour morning show extravaganza. Thanks for tuning in. Coming up in 30 minutes, Byron, York, Washington Examiner. 8:05 brings us Ron Halber of Jewish Community Relations Council. Talk about the terror attacks in Colorado. And 8:35 brings us Brendan Steinhauser for the Alliance for Secure AI. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Julie, Joe diGenova's here.
Yay!
Let's get right to it. Joe, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Great to be with you guys.
So much to get to. We're about to have a lot of Supreme Court decisions this month. And also, we had some decisions, most notably on Friday, where the Supreme Court has now allowed for the Trump administration to revoke temporary legal status for over 500,000 illegal immigrants that the Biden administration let in from Haiti, Venezuela. I feel like we're getting mixed messages from the Supreme Court in terms of where the executive authority is here on determining immigration policy and the status of people in this country illegally. Are you able to sort of figure out what this court stands for on these decisions?
No, I'm not. Even with Sherlock Holmesian spyglasses, you can't figure it out. I think in the case of the 500,000 people here under parole, that seemed to be relatively easy for them because it involved an executive order by a former president. It didn't involve a statute. It involved a program created by a president. And then the court said, well, the next president can simply revoke that. Well, one would think that same logic would apply in just about every issue that has come before the court.
Thank
if
you.
The previous president did it and it's not in statute, then it should be revoked. It's like the tariff case. By the way, the tariff case out of the international court was that's a fix. That case was fixed from the beginning. The chief judge on the International Court of Trade purposely picked 3 judges that he knew would rule against the president of the United States. I think Congress should hold hearings on that. I think they should call the chief judge of that court before them, make him answer questions, and just ignore Chief Justice Roberts when he says don't do that.
Yeah, well said. And thank you. I was going to ask you about that one as well. I think I saw Deborah Heine of American Greatness reporting about that, about the fact that the judge did not do it randomly and specifically handpick that. And you said, previous president did an executive order. The new president can reverse that executive order. That's always how things have been. And yet, yes, finally the Supreme Court said fine on the parolees. But you've got all these federal judges, these circuit judges that continue to muck up the works. Is it really just as simple as John Roberts telling these federal courts with their TROs that end up, being nationwide, coast to coast? Can John Roberts just say, knock it off, just stop it, or immediately override it? I mean, what can he do here to exercise his authority?
The Supreme Court, as a body, can rule that nationwide injunctions are not recognized in federal law until the court. So the only court, theoretically, that can issue a nationwide injunction is the Supreme Court of the United States. Their rulings cover the whole country. They cover all the states, all the federal districts, and what they say goes. But when it goes to like a circuit court of appeals, that court of appeals doesn't rule for the whole country. They rule for their circuit. That's why you have something called a conflict in the circuits. When different circuits rule different ways, then the Supreme Court says, I think I should take this case up and resolve it between these two circuits. So the nationwide injunction, the nationwide injunctions by district courts are stupid, ludicrous, uncomplicated, and yet when you hear Elena Kagan, who in 2022 said, I think nationwide injunctions are awful. They don't make any sense at all. And then the case comes before the court, and she's asked the same question, and she can't figure out how they're not okay. I mean, you talk about, and then the chief judge goes around, the Chief Justice of the United States goes around saying, it's our judge. He's giving a speech to a judicial conference. It's our job to rein in the excesses of Congress and the presidency. It is not your job. Your job is to rule, period, not to make public comments other than good law day. I mean, the Chief Justice has created a monster. He is Dr. Frankenstein.
Joe, want to switch over to the Autopen controversy and whether DOJ is going to name a special counsel, especially to look into Anita Dunn, who kept her lobbying job while also being a special assistant at the White House and clearly having access to that Autopen. What do you think the chances are that we have a special counsel on this, or public hearings?
Well, I'm all for public hearings. I think the more hearings, the better. But Anita Dunn, Mark Elias, Norm Eisen, you name them. There's a list. There's a list of people in Kash Patel's book that anybody can pick up and read. Those people need grand jury subpoenas. What was done was a crime. It was a crime against the people of the United States. A fraud was committed on the American people. They were denied the good and faithful service of the President of the United States. They were denied the honest service of the President of the United States. There just isn't any question that crimes were committed. This does not require a lot of thought. This is rudimentary stuff, just like the original theory that we discussed, Larry, on your show, back when people didn't even know that you could have a conspiracy to deny someone their civil rights. When James Comey decided he was going to go after Michael Flynn, we knew then that crimes were afoot. Who didn't know? The Washington Post, the New York Times, and apparently Donald Trump's own Justice Department.
And to that, I mean, the Wall Street Journal is now calling for a Watergate-style hearing to investigate the Biden presidency and every. Yeah, I figured as much. Go ahead and take the ball there, Joe. Watergate.
Suppose you go have some coffee for a change.
Welcome to the party, pal. On the denial of Donald Trump's civil rights and the ongoing, we learned over I think it was Thursday morning, Dan Bongino, deputy director of the FBI, said that there is they found a room that had a ton of stuff on James Comey, connected to James Comey, that apparently, based on this interview from Deputy Director Bongino, had never been turned over, had never been revealed. This is all like newfound stuff. And that seems kind of like criminal activity, considering the FBI is supposed to be accountable to Congress, specifically the House Committee on Intelligence. What do you suspect there may be there? And do you have faith at this point in Kash and Dan in able to actually bring this to light, or is the deep state just too deep?
I assume that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are laser focused on this. I don't have any doubt that they are talking to the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, that they have in their sights theoretically a grand jury down the road some point, somewhere in the United States to focus on this. Because remember, that's a secret room. And what is that? That means hiding something. That means you're being deceitful and deceptive. It also means that when you're hiding it from people as a law enforcement officer, that when it's discovered in 2025, the statute of limitations starts to run all over again for all the crimes that were committed in 2016. So all the more reason for a federal grand jury to start calling people in. And James Comey actually, you don't call Comey in first. You call him kind of either in the middle or near the end. But there are a lot of FBI underlings who need to be put in a grand jury.
Well, James Comey's too busy on his book tour and taking long walks on the beach with his wife, too. So we can
write a new one from inside prison called How I Got Here.
Joe, hold on. We got to talk to you about some of these Supreme Court decisions that we're waiting for over the course of the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a busy time here, so we'll get to Joe a little bit more in a moment. First, though, 7:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We continue with Joe diGenova as decision after decision is on. Actually, before we get to the Supreme Court decision, one other thing the Supreme Court did, it was a little over a week ago, but it's an important one. Trump tried to fire the head of the Labor Board, 5 members of the Labor Board, and other federal employees, heads of divisions. Again, that was blocked, although there was certainly precedent for a president to be able to do that. And the Supreme Court sided with Trump, said, yes, you can fire these members of the National Labor Review Board and other federal agencies. Again, it took till end of May to be able to do this thing that President Trump promised he would do when he ran for office. I mean, the Supreme Court is frustrating, and they're dragging their feet, but it seems like eventually, for the most part, they're getting to the right place here, Joe. And reflect on that and also what you expect to see from them over the course of the next few weeks.
Well, I think they are doing the right thing in the really big cases. For example, presidential immunity, when they ruled that a sitting president cannot be prosecuted, and even after office, they gave their famous definitions of what constitutes an official act and an unofficial act. And what's important for people to remember is, and this is where I will now side with John Roberts and the Supreme Court.
Wow.
These cases have been artificially created by the left, by the Norm Eisens, by the Mark Eliases of this world, by the DNC, by lawyers and leftists all over the country to sue Donald Trump. 184 cases since Trump became president. Astronomical numbers in carefully selected federal courts, liberal leftist courts all over the country, designed to thwart the president. SCOTUS cannot control that. They cannot control the number of cases being filed and the outrageous actions being taken by a number of federal district courts. By the way, I'm a great defender of the courts and letting them do their job and getting out of their way. However, when something becomes so obvious that it is clear that there are a group of Democratic federal judges who hate the president and talk about him at lunches in the courthouse, then it's time to start talking about them. And by the way, there is just no doubt. I have sources all over the country that I talk to because of this show and other things that I do that are telling me and these are people that work for federal judges, who tell me about the conversations in the lunchrooms and those conversations about hatred of Trump and how to get him. And this is coming from the mouths of federal judges in lunches, in federal courthouses all over the United States. And let me send a warning to those judges, a lovely, precious warning. You keep that up, and you're going to find yourself in a hearing or a grand jury over what's going on in those lunchrooms in courthouses around the country.
Joe, these judges actually go beyond just federal judges, as we've seen Judge Duggan, this Wisconsin woman, who we've seen the video of her. I mean, it's so blatant. She got off the bench. We discussed it a little bit last week. But the way the media covers this, if I can let you, turn your blowtorch on the media for a moment, because they make it sound like this judge in Wisconsin was arrested, Joe, because she disagreed with Trump. Like Trump arrested her because of an ideological difference or because of a decision. No, it's because she aided and abetted a criminal and impeded federal law enforcement. But that's a big part of this, isn't it? I mean, the president can do what he can do, but also Congress can start impeaching these judges. And they'll say that it's because of ideology, but it's not. It's because they're actually abusing their power. There's nothing more terrifying than a judge abusing their power.
Absolutely, because there is generally no review. People take the hands-off attitude toward them, and with understandable reluctance not to go after judges. And we all appreciate that. I'm a lawyer. I understand that. But here's the thing. The question is, what happens when a group of judges around the country become so injudicious in the way they act, behave, and rule that you cannot ignore it? You have to look at it and say, this system was designed to allow critics to say, this smells, this isn't good. And I commend Congress for holding hearings and bringing them in. And I tell you something, Congress, the Republicans will never be able to do this because they just don't have the cojones. They cannot do it. They don't have the internal. Democrats would do this in a New York minute. I always ask the question. Victoria says, ask this question: what would Nancy Pelosi do? And the answer is she slaps subpoenas. She slaps subpoenas on a bunch of federal judges, get them in there, have a big fight in the courts about whether or not they can be called in, and let it get resolved by the Supreme Court. You need to focus on these judges. Now, you need to focus on it in a proper way. What are they ruling? Why are they ruling? And are these conversations that are happening in lunchrooms inside federal courthouses so bad, so partisan, so unconstitutional, so illegal that the immunity that these judges have been given must be stripped away, and these judges must be questioned about what's happening in those lunches. What's happening now around the country is subversive.
I want to hear more about these lunchroom conversations.
Yeah,
we
no
have
kidding.
to leave it there, sadly. But everyone send your tips to our email and social media, and we'll take care of it for you. Joe, always good to talk to you. It's going to be a busy few weeks, so hunker down. Let's get ready.
All right.
All right. By the way, love seeing you in Victoria regularly on Newsmax. When I'm in the green room waiting to go on, you guys are on. It's always fun to see you. I love you too. So.
We love it. We love it. We love Chris Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax.
Thanks, brother. It's 7:23.
Making sense of your world.
There are a lot of things that really tick me off.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Let's go. It's time for another Military Medicine Minute. WMAL, powered by Humana Military and the Friends of Uniformed Services, University of the Health Sciences. In the thick of World War II, pilots flying high altitudes began blacking out from lack of oxygen. I never had thought about this before. First time we had planes that could fly that high, right? Well, to save them, military doctors and engineers developed the first practical oxygen mask. That's right, a snug rubberized device that delivered pressurized air directly to the lungs. It worked. Pilots stayed conscious, alert, and alive. This invention didn't just win battles, it changed medicine. After the war, doctors saw its potential beyond the cockpit. Hospitals began adapting the technology to help patients with respiratory failure. But its most profound impact came in neonatal care. The oxygen mask's principles were miniaturized and refined, giving fragile newborns a fighting chance. Today, the legacy of that wartime invention lives on in every NICU, ambulance, and emergency room. And that's it for another Military Medicine Minute. Coming up, Byron York, Washington Examiner. Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for checking in with us as we get you going on this busy morning, coming off a very busy weekend. It may feel like summer out there, but we're right in the thick of it, and we're going to keep you informed and hopefully entertained while we do it. Coming up at 8:05, Ron Halber, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, on the terror attacks in Boulder, Colorado. And then at 8:35, Brendan Steinhauser, CEO of the Alliance for Secure AI. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
We go from one of our favorites to the next favorite. Byron York joins us now, Washington Examiner. Real fast, here's Elon Musk on Friday as he ended his role as a special government employee as per schedule, heading up the Doge effort, Cut 20.
I think the Doge team is doing an incredible job. They're going to continue doing an incredible job, and I'll continue to be visiting here and be a friend and advisor to the president. And I look forward to times being back in this amazing room.
Chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner is Byron York. And Byron, Russ Vought, director of OMB, actually affirmed over the weekend that they're taking a lot of the recommendations from Doge, putting it into the rescission package. And Speaker Johnson said that they're going to be taking other recommendations and putting it through the appropriations process. So all in all, as Elon Musk steps away, the Doge effort continues, and it's actually more effective than the media portrays it to be. It appears to me, at least.
Well, certainly if it gets congressional validation in some areas and actually cuts ridiculous, stupid, wasteful spending that Doge identified at the congressional level, that would be really, really good. I think as you look back at Musk's time in Doge, I mean, there's really a couple of ways to think about it. I mean, one, it's really good to stop stupid, wasteful government spending. That is a good thing, and we should applaud people who tried to do it. Yes. So, kudos to him for doing it. At the same time, I think Musk himself overpromised and underdelivered in terms of dollars. There was a time when he was talking about cutting $2 trillion, out of the federal budget, and then he talked about $1 trillion. And if you look at the Doge website, I didn't check it this morning, but I checked it a day or two ago. They said that they have accounted for $175 billion in savings. Now, that is we shouldn't be so Washington as to think that $175 billion is not a lot of money. It is, but it is a lot less than he promised.
Yeah.
Hey, I think some people sort of feel bad for Elon. I mean, I certainly do. I feel bad for him because it's been interesting watching sort of the disillusionment, right? He started out so enthusiastic, jumping around. He was so excited. And you can tell now he's much more, I don't know, he just seems a little bit down about how things worked out. What are your thoughts on that? There's everything from, he's sporting a black eye to there have been fights with cabinet members. There's a lot of rumors out there. But what are your thoughts on sort of his position now and how he feels about D.C. and Trump?
Well, I think he blamed his 5-year-old son for the black eye, like not Scott Bessent or something like that. But you're right. There has been this process going on. And I think that some of well, let's start out this way. Democrats want President Trump to fail, and a lot of their allies in the media. So therefore, they want Elon Musk to fail. They wanted him to fail. And Washington is a really nasty place when there's a group that wants to destroy you, a powerful group like the media or an entire political party. So that was a big deal, and he found all of those the sort of press media guns, aimed at him. Now, at the same time, I think he did some things that made his job a lot harder, mostly in his statements on X, when he said, that time he said, we spent the weekend putting USAID into the wood chipper, feeding it into the wood chipper. We could have gone to some really great parties, but we did this instead. That just looked terrible. And I think the whole performance on stage at CPAC, where he's got the chainsaw and he's kind of prancing around with a chainsaw, was also a bad idea. That was good in the room for the people at CPAC who supported that, but maybe there were cameras there, maybe not outside the room.
Byron, it's so funny. And I was guilty of it. At the time, I thought it was awesome and amazing. And in retrospect, it's like, that probably isn't the best image for what's happening here. But meanwhile, David Brooks on PBS over the weekend, he's a New York Times columnist, supposedly a Republican, said that he is, I'll quote him, Musk is semi-responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people because of cuts at USAID, which USAID looks nothing more like than a slush fund for Democrat priorities that, by the way, is still happening. It's just under the auspices of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and some aid is still going on. But a whole lot of that stuff had nothing to do with starving children in Africa.
I just had an odd moment here. You guys went out for a few seconds, but I missed some of what David Brooks said.
It was David Brooks said that basically likening the cuts via USAID and other things, saying that Musk was semi-responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Called him Pol Pot.
Yeah. Well, the important thing to remember about the USAID stuff, and this happened at the very beginning of the dawn of the Doge era, is that they did move a lot of the popular programs. And I think most of us agree that in terms of foreign aid, it's a good thing to send wheat to starving places, to send medicine, to stop also tropical diseases and that kind of stuff. This is a good thing for the United States to do. It's relatively cheap in terms of the national budget, and so we do it. And it's also just bureaucratically, it's the right thing to do to put it in the State Department, where it has more scrutiny, than in a so-called independent agency like USAID, where they could put that kind of aid alongside funding for an LGBTQIA comic book in Ecuador. Yeah. So I think just, in terms of government and administration, it made a lot of sense to do what Doge did in this.
Yeah, I agree. And your headline of your newsletter this weekend was that America owes Elon Musk a debt of gratitude, I believe is how you put it. And I agree with you.
Can I clarify that a little bit? I mean,
yeah.
I want to say this. The story, to me, is that the incredible thing about Musk is what he has done in space. The United States accomplished one of the greatest accomplishments in human history, putting men on the moon 56 years ago. Is that right? I think. Yeah. And then we downgraded the space program to the space shuttle, which just represented lower ambitions in space. And then we just quit that altogether in 2011. And the United States had to depend on Russia to launch an American into space. We just abandoned space, and Elon Musk has almost single-handedly revived the ambition and the purpose of the U.S. space program. So I just think that he deserves incredible thanks for doing that. This is something where the United States was by far the leader in the world, a world historic leader in this, and had just had quit the field. And Musk brings us back in that. So this is not Doge I'm talking about. This is what he has done in space, which has been incredible.
Yeah, and by the way, to that end, I just announced, I think in the month of May, they launched, basically every 2 days, there was a launch from SpaceX.
Yeah.
He's getting us to the point where we will have a launch every single day, which really does ramp us up to his dream of a Mars mission, and it'll all because of him. And you're right. Suddenly, America sort of is looking to the stars again and seeing that ambition that we used to have. And there is something about the American vision that needed some revival. Byron, thank you. Very thoughtful stuff, as always.
Thank you, Larry.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Julie, one other item happened during this little press conference in the Oval Office as President Trump bid farewell to Elon Musk, at least for now, in his status as a special government employee. Peter Doocy asked if President Trump had any advice to President Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, after the sort of embarrassing little dust-up there with his wife Brigitte
clawing at him.
Yeah, he pushed him. Yeah, clawing, exactly, with sort of the talons on his face there as the airplane door was airplane doors open, and suddenly the cameras catch Macron getting attacked by his former school teacher. And so anyway, the president's answer, I think, was the greatest response you will ever hear from a world leader at an awkward and sensitive moment like this. Let's listen.
This week there was a video on board a plane that showed the First Lady of France slapping her husband, Emmanuel Macron. Do you have any world leader to world leader marital advice on Macron?
Make sure the door remains closed.
I think that was diplomatic of President Trump, wasn't it?
Yeah, he knows how to control his image. The man is a master at that. There was a video that came out of him getting ready to film something, and he was like, remove the water, but put the table back. No, take the table. No, put the water back. It was fascinating to watch how he really controls that stuff. So good advice. I would take President Trump's advice when it comes to image.
That didn't try to venture into, how to handle your wife or your relationship. Just make sure the door is closed. That solves a lot of problems. 7:53.